Bula Vinaka, and welcome to Bula Wellness. I'm your host, Dr. Alisha Saukan, the Head of Health Protection with the Ministry of Health and Medical Services. In an earlier episode, we looked at the work that is done in the emergency department of a hospital. But what happens if there's a medical emergency outside a hospital? Who provides care to a patient pre-hospital? That is, for example, from the scene of an accident through to transport and arrival at an emergency department. More developed countries have trained paramedics who can arrive at the scene of an accident in an ambulance in minutes and provide life-saving care at the scene and en route to hospital. However, in Fiji, it's not as simple. While we do have ambulance services through the National Fire Authority and St. John's Ambulance, we don't have an official paramedical service. And frequently, it's bystanders that transport injured patients from the scene of an accident. Well-intentioned action that in some cases may worsen conditions, for example, for spinal injuries. It was after seeing this gap in pre-hospital care that Lemeki Lenoa, an IT specialist, started a charitable trust called Volunteer First Responders, or VFR, and this was over 10 years ago. VFR assists the existing service providers in providing pre-hospital care through the deployment of trained volunteers from a range of backgrounds. So in this episode, we will look at the work that Volunteer First Responder does and talk to one of its volunteers, Dr. Ilikini Naitini, who is also an emergency department doctor. But first, we go to the streets to see what some of you know about emergency services in Fiji.
In Fiji, what number do you call for help in a medical emergency?
Number that I call during medical emergency is 911.
911.
917.
911.
911?
919. 911.
Welcome back. Our guest today is Dr. Ilikini Naitini, Volunteer First Responder and Emergency Department Doctor. Dr. Ilikini, welcome. Thank you for being here today. First of all, please tell us a little bit about your background.
Bulubnaka everyone, and Bulubnaka to the viewers. My name is Dr. Ilikini Naitini. I'm a doctor at the Emergency Department in CWM. So I've been doing volunteer work ever since when I was in secondary school. I initially started with St. John Ambulance, and then once I got into medical school, still with St. John Ambulance till today. But for the past about 7 years ago, I joined a group of Volunteer First Responders, which is the founder is Mr. Lemeki Lenoa. And from then till today, we mainly respond to most motor vehicle accidents or accidents at home, or even if there's a need by the search and rescue gang, we go and help them in that area.
And Dr. Ilikini, so you're a doctor in the emergency department. You're telling me before that you are doing your postgraduate studies right now?
Yes, I completed my postgrad diploma in emergency medicine last year, and currently pursuing my master's in emergency medicine, and currently in the first year.
Okay, so tell me, you're a member of VFR, Volunteer First Responder. How does VFR actually work?
It's an NGO. It's a non-government organization. So usually whenever there is a call, usually the call is received by Mr. Lemeki Lenoa, and then there is an app which is known as a rapid deploy app. So with the app, it sort of gives, so we have a few members who's got the apps. So he'll look at the apps and the exact location of the accident, and then he'll sort of assign whoever is nearest to that, and also according to your skill level or your competency level. And then he'll brief you on what the case is about, and then request you if you're available, if you can respond to the scene, or if you can't, then he'll look at the next available one closest to the exact location of the incident.
Okay, and this notification, how is it received? Is this in conjunction with other organizations?
Mostly with other organizations that feed us with this sort of notification include. We have from the police department, the NFA, National Fire Authority. Even sometimes when I'm on call at the emergency department and there's a call out from the public, I inform the VFR group, and then they do respond also.
Okay.
And even at times from the Navy also.
Right. And so these notifications usually come from members of the public who call one of the emergency numbers?
Yes.
And then it goes through to the police or fire authority and then through to you?
Yes.
Well, why are you doing this work? You're already an emergency department doctor, you work long hours, you're helping people. What made you join volunteer first responder?
As I've initially mentioned, I love doing volunteer work. I've been doing this ever since when I was in secondary school with St. John Ambulance. And then I always love working out of the hospital. It makes you think outside the box, it makes you improvise, and it sort of gives you that adrenaline rush every now and then. Makes you think and makes you improvise with whatever resources available to try and help whoever is injured or if there's a patient in front of you. That's what I love the best.
Okay, and this is all done on your own time?
This is done on my own time whenever I'm on day off from work.
Okay.
Or whenever I'm on leave.
All right. And so as VFR is a charitable trust, so all of the equipment that you have, the logistics, everything, where does it come from? How do you actually finance this?
Okay. Most of the financing is done by Mr. Lenoir, who is the founder of the VFR. And also we have donations every now and then from the AusAid, from Heroes Need Heroes, and also from some of our members of the VFR who generous enough to give money or just to donate equipment to the organization. That's mainly how we've been sustaining ourselves for the past 7 years. But bulk of it is from Mr. Lenoir.
Okay. And of course, you're one of these people who also put in your own funds into the VFR.
Yeah.
So if I were in an accident right now, if I walked outside and I was hit by a vehicle, how would I be treated at the scene and transported to hospital?
Yeah.
With VFR
With
or
VFR.
without VFR?
Okay. So we've been doing training for the police and for the fire gang in Peck Harbor. So basically we're supposed to be, so the ideal treatment is they're supposed to do a scene safety, and then they make sure your airway breathing circulation is okay. They need to put a collar on you, and they need to, if depending on the severity, whether they need to do some sort of immobilization, put you on a stretcher and transfer you to the hospital. But unfortunately, the most scenarios that we see at the emergency department, people just pick you out of the wreck, and they load you into whatever car is available without doing any treatment or any precaution at all, and they bring you over to the hospital, which is what we are discouraging the public from doing. Even though it feels like that you're helping someone, but in fact you're making the condition worse.
There seems to be that urgency whenever there's an accident, that it's just grab the person and take them as soon as possible to hospital,
Yeah.
right? And that's what you're trying to discourage.
Yes. I'm sure we might have, most of us might have come across those kind of situations, which is not really helpful though.
Yeah. All right, I think we're going to talk a lot more about that, but first we need to go to a quick break. Welcome back. You're watching Bula Wellness on FBC TV. We have Dr. Ilikini Naitini, and we're talking about pre-hospital care. Dr. Ilikini, before we went to break, you were talking about how a common, something common that you see in Fiji is that accident victims get brought to the hospital directly by members of the public and the problems associated with that. Could we just go over that again?
Okay. So, say for example, a recent example would be there was an accident involving a bus that turned over in just somewhere near Wunindawa a few weeks ago. So none of the patients that arrived at the emergency department, so we were on call on that early Saturday morning, none of them were brought by any ambulances. They were just brought in at the back of a twin cab, all just grabbed from the side of the road without any spinal precaution or without putting any proper bandage to stop any bleeding. Just grab, load, and brought over to the hospital. So there was no sort of any monitoring to see whether the patient deteriorated on the way before they reached the nearest hospital. And the interesting thing about it was that they've passed a few health facilities before they reached the CWM. So what we also encourage the public is that if you come across this kind of this kind of scene, if you can call, if you dial the emergency number, and then most times they'll advise you what to do, and we advise you, if you can, do not intervene. Just see if, just for the safety of everyone else, clear the safety if there's any power lines or any water burst or a broken water pipes. If you can call the relevant authorities, but please do not move the casualty and wait for the proper medical first responders to arrive for them to extricate the patient.
Some people could argue that, in Fiji in particular, that there may be delays in when that first responder or that ambulance arrives. And if you have a very critical emergency, isn't it better just to take that person to hospital?
That's where we always advise the public and also anyone who's interested, if you can do a course, a basic life-saving course. These simple courses will tell you what to do on how to approach any scene or any accident scene. It'll tell you what to do and what sort of precautions to take to help these patients before they're transported to the hospital. I know that most of the time you want to help, but most of the time also that in the process of helping, it tends to make the condition worse, make the patient's condition worse.
And where can the public access these courses?
Basic life-saving courses is offered by Red Cross, St. John Ambulance, they also do that. And there are a few other private first aid instructors who does this. VFR provided, but at the moment we are only concentrating on upskilling first our responders. That will include our ambulance drivers from the Ministry of Health. We've trained a few Navy officers, the police officers, the PSRU officers, and also the NFA, the fire personnel from Peck Harbor.
Okay. Other than your first responder responsibilities to emergencies, you also do quite a bit of work in search and rescue. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay. So whenever there is a distress call and there is a need for a telemedicine that comes through the FMS RCC, that's a Fiji Maritime Rescue Surveillance Coordination Center. So they always give me a call, and then they sort of set up a teleconference, and then I provide telemedicine to whoever that's in need of any medical help out there.
And recently you had to go on site, so
Yes.
can you tell us about the recent search and rescue that you were involved in?
That was I think a month or two ago, involving the MV Leona. So I was just knocking off night shift, and there was a call that there was a MV Leona on their way to Kandavu, and it's giving out a distress call. And then FMS RCC contacted Mr. Leno, who contacted me. And then we activated a plan. So I volunteered to go with the Fiji Navy, just in case if there is a mass case, I can at least start triage from at sea before patients are being stabilized and brought over to mainland for the treatment.
But that's another example of how quickly VFR is able to respond to these incidents. And you said you were coming off night shifts, of course you're very tired.
So on the way to the scene, I just have to take a few minutes of nap before we reach the scene. So.
Yes. And then of course you were diverted to pick up another.
Oh yeah. So
case.
on our way back, and I remember that was I think it was Easter Sunday, because myself and the crew, we were all excited about going home, having a good lovo, and then especially coming off night shift and need a good sleep. But just when you were about to reach, I think we were about 3/4 way into Suva, when we got another distress call from Vunisea Hospital. I think the weather was unfavorable at that time, so they cannot send a plane or a chopper over. So they requested us to go and pick the casualty up, the patient up from Vunisea. Yeah.
So this is all part of your job as an emergency department doctor
That
and your volunteer
side of,
service
Yes.
with VFR.
Yeah.
Of course, Lemek Lenoir is the founder of the organization of VFR. We couldn't interview him because he is with the rest of the team in Samoa for the
Yes.
Pacific Games. Could you tell us a bit about what VFR is doing at the Pacific Games?
Okay. So VFR has been going to Samoa for the past 2 months. They were invited by SMADA. SMADA is someone Samoan Medical Anti-Doping Agency. So what SMAD had identified is that there is a need for a proper pre-hospital health services for the Pacific Games. So they approached VFR if we can help them in this pre-hospital segment of things. So we've been conducting training for the past 2 months, and the training has completed. So during the game itself, they want us if we can. So there is a center, the pre-hospital emergency coordination center, that is run and manned by the VFR. And this is coordinating all other agencies in Samoa, including the Red Cross, the SFESA, the emergency service.
And this is for the Pacific Games?
And this is for the Pacific Games.
Okay. We just have to go to a quick commercial break, but more after this break.
Here with Mr. Lemeki Manoa, who is the founder of the VFR. Lemeki, we're here in Samoa. Can you just tell us the short version of how you founded this organisation and how you came to be in Samoa for the Pacific Games?
So, talofa everybody, and Bula from Samoa. It's been a very rewarding experience being here, and just the shorter version of how VFR came about, really out of passion, seeing the gaps that we have in pre-hospital care, and also with the coordination of the emergency services. That's pretty much what kick-started it. Initially started off with responding to natural disasters, and over the years it's just grown with the relationship with the emergency medicine network of doctors and nurses to move into pre-hospital care. And with Samoa, I guess with the work that we've been doing at home, some of it's filtered through to Samoa, and they asked for help in terms of supporting the pre-hospital coordination, and so we were asked to come here. And welcome to the pre-hospital emergency care coordination cell here at the Pacific Games in Apia. VFR was asked to come on board and help support the Ministry of Health with the pre-hospital care coordination. And working with us today in the cell, we have representatives from the Samoa Red Cross and also from FESA, which is the Fire Emergency Services Authority. And what you see behind me is the team that works behind the scenes to make sure that all ambulance and medical resources out there are coordinated. So the way that the cell operates is that all the agencies have got communications via radio telephones directly to their units out there on the ground, and we communicate and coordinate with everyone using radios, phones, and also social media through messaging platforms. And we are here to support the Ministry of Health with the pre-hospital operations, and also support the other emergency service agencies as well with any emergency response. It has been a very rewarding experience for the entire team that's come over from Fiji. We've had a team of 11 members that have come about, including those that are also part of the VFR team but flew in from New Zealand and Australia. So far it's been a really great experience, and we've learned a lot working with our colleagues within the emergency services and the Ministry of Health. Lots of good data captured, and looking forward to submitting all of this and how we can improve safety for the games and the athletes and the officials into the future.
The session today was brilliant. The interactive sessions are much better for our teams and than the sitting sessions. A lot of good feedback from a lot of participants wanting
Awesome stuff. Been a real eye-opening experience, and I can say that the VFR spirit is there.
You got a pulse back?
Yeah.
Limited, I'd like to thank Carrie and the team outside have been fantastic. Lemeki and the team, we're so honored, because we're with the Pacific, right? And so islands, we're islands all together. We work to facilitate in capacity building, and talking to the FESA, the leader of FESA, Tanwasa, this is the beginning, yeah? The relationship between FESA and the doctors, nurses, and physio, the health. We want to see this grow and grow and grow.
So the first responder course is quite good. I felt that it's been a really good exercise, multi-exercise that we got to carry out the different roles. It really reinforced how important it is to have good communication with the different services outside of just health.
Thank you, Dr. Ilikini. Before we have to let you go, is there a message that you'd like to give the public regarding pre-hospital care?
Just one important message that we've been advocating with VFR is that if we can encourage the general public, parents, if you can encourage your children to learn basic life support, get them enrolled in programs. I'm sure St. John and Red Cross, they run these holiday classes for CPR and also treating minor injuries. This really helps. These basic skills will take them a long way, and it will save a lot of life.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Ilikini. And with that, we're at the end of the final episode of Bula Wellness. I hope you enjoyed the program this season, and I'd also like to take this time to thank all of our guests who have taken out time from their busy schedules to join us to discuss, inform, and educate us in the past 13 episodes. If you have queries about the show, like or contact us on Facebook, Bula Wellness FBC TV, or write to us at bulawellness@fbc.com.fj. From the Bula Wellness team here at FBC TV, the Ministry of Health and Medical Services, and myself, thank you for joining us, and have yourself a very good night.